We have a very special guest today. Her name is Laina Goley. She's an FDN-P and HHC. We'll learn what those acronyms mean. She's broken bones from her head to her toes. She was in a plane crash, but truly an amazing story, a remarkable story about the power of prayer, the power of our words, the power of our thoughts, and the ability for the body to heal itself. This is something you won't want to miss. Thank you for joining us.
This is a Soaak podcast.
Welcome to the Science of Sound, where cutting-edge research meets real-world application. Hosted by Fournier, this podcast explores the fascinating intersection of sound, frequencies, and human performance. From the science behind bioharmonic resonance to the future of sound-based wellness, we break down the data, the discoveries, and the impact sound has on your mind and body. Let's dive in.
So, Laina, you've been in the health and wellness field for over 20 years now.
Yes.
Can you tell me, why did you get into health and wellness? I guess maybe even before we start with that, and I know you have an amazing story around this because we talked about it a little bit earlier. Your credentials, you're an FDN-P?
Yes.
And then you're also an HHC?
Yes.
Okay, what does that mean?
That's a holistic health coach,
okay,
as well as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner.
Okay.
It's a lot of words, so I just say functional wellness practitioner, just to shorten it. Again, yeah. So I went to holistic health school, and I also went to functional school.
So what would be the difference, if I'm your patient and I'm sitting in the clinic with you, what might somebody experience that's different sitting with you versus sitting with a medical doctor? How might that appointment look different? Are there any different protocols that you have or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. So I personally don't believe that we are deficient in pharmaceuticals. Medical doctors are amazing at what they do, but they are treating symptoms with medication. I truly believe that the body is designed to heal. And I believe that we have an innate intelligence. And I believe, our birthright is health. Yeah. And so I am a big believer in finding out the why of symptoms.
I love that.
Then we can help the body heal. We just need to come alongside it and dig deep and figure out what we need to do.
Yeah, looking at those root cause.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's below the surface.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, very cool. So I'm sure we'll get into that more in a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning. So what brought you into health and wellness?
Okay, so I grew up in a family that we ate super healthy. We didn't really take medicine ever. And not that I followed that as a teenager because, anytime I could sneak nasty food, which I call poison food now, chemical food, I would. And but what ended up happening is I was in a plane crash, and many years ago when I was 21, and it rocked my world. It was just a huge paradigm shift. Yeah. And I, at the time, was working with a ministry, and we were on our way to a youth conference. And, we would do this every weekend, and we would fly. It was a six-seater plane. Okay. It wasn't a commercial plane, so everybody knows this. So this particular night, I happened to be nervous to get on the plane, and I normally am not nervous. And I would be asking friends, the couple of people that were going to be on the plane, do you feel nervous to get on tonight? And they said, no, not at all. And so I was like, okay, and I did not realize that we have this intuition,
absolutely,
and that we need to be tuning into it. But majority of the time, we're just blowing and going through life. We're on autopilot, and we don't take the time to really, think about that. So anyway, we got on that plane, and the pilot was instrument rated. Was not instrument rated.
Oh, okay.
And he could see only by sight, so he had to always stay below the clouds. Right. And let me backtrack. When I was nervous about getting on the plane that night, I did not know that there were a couple other warnings that there was going to be a snowstorm happening. Oh. Yeah. So we ended up being, flying for about 5 hours. and we got caught in this snowstorm. I woke up because I was asleep, and to this, major turbulence happening, and all of us just kind of woke up, and you could just barely hear us all praying underneath our breath, not knowing what was going on. And the pilot at the time was kind of out of it and trying to get the towers to tell us where we are, or we need to come in and land. And he said, I'm sorry, sir, you're not on our radar. And I remember just for that brief moment thinking, But again, we at that time, we were just like, we're on our way. We're living for God. We're going to be protected, and it's all going to be good. And so I think that was my mindset at that time. Right. So there wasn't really this fear. It was more of, okay, what's the next thing that's going to happen? And next thing I know, he's like, the guy on the radio was just saying, okay, so we got somebody else. We think we found you. Let's come on and land. And the next thing I know, the plane is, tilting sideways, and it is just this big thug. It was like, and I just hear everyone, such a loud noise that I even hear to this day. And I remember just looking up, and it's snowing, and I'm looking around, and I'm just out of sorts. And just at about that time, you hear all this, wrestling and people coming around us. And I did not know at the time, but we crashed into the front porch of a house.
Oh my goodness. And
the paramedics happened to be home all at the same time in that neighborhood. It was just a small podunk town. And so, it was miraculous, really. The paramedics were just saying, listen, nobody ever survives these. We've had planes in better condition than this, and everybody is gone. And so this was just miraculous. And so if you landed north, south, east, and west, 2 hours anywhere, there would be nothing.
Nobody to find you.
Nobody to rescue you. And so again, they came in and they would tell us different stories just watching the plane, and somebody even videotaped rescuing us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So what ended up happening is the pilot came in, his seat came undone and crushed, basically was on top of me, crushed me.
Oh my goodness, okay.
And so he actually turned around, and a piece of wood from the porch was sticking out of his tongue and blood all over his face. And he turned and he looked at me and he's like, I am so sorry. And I was thinking, sorry for what? And I'm looking at it and I'm not understanding because I'm out of it. I hit my face and so I looked down and my legs were kind of around the seat, and I realized my foot didn't look like it was connected to my leg anymore. And this is how out of it I am. I'm like, well, I can't minister or go to a church function with my foot looking like this. So
I'm worried about the event you were headed towards.
Where's my brain? And so I bend down and I go to try to fix it, and I hear bones crack, and I'm thinking, but I'm out of it, so I'm not even connecting that there's no feeling. I'm just hearing something. And so then I hear that they're rescuing and taking out a friend of mine in the front seat, and he broke his back, and I'm just like, I just got to get out of here, Right. And I then at that moment I'm like, I cannot feel from my waist down, and so then I end up saying, I can't feel my legs, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, we'll be with you in just a second, and so then they start rescuing me, and here the beautifulness about the human body is it shuts down so that you don't feel anything. Right, and it was really a blessing at that time, because the minute they moved me, I was like, oh my gosh, don't touch me. Okay. Now I realize that I'm broken everywhere. Right. And so we end up getting to the hospital, and I just remember this doctor looking on my face, because at that time, like, please give me something, just give me something. I'm in so much pain. And he just looked over at me and goes, okay, now you're going to be out of pain. I was like, oh yeah, thank you. And so what ended up happening was I crushed every bone in my left foot, and bones were coming through my that foot, and I crushed my right heel. Here's another awesome thing about the body that I did not know is the doctor has a choice that night. He could either pin back your heel with little pins, or he can wait for the body to just disintegrate it and make a brand new one. Fabulous. I was like, wow, that is
I've
just,
never heard of that.
So that night, that doctor, and they said, amazing, you got the top doctor who is just brilliant, on call that night. And so I was like, well, that was divine as well,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So anyway, so I crushed my right heel and then broke my leg, broke my pelvis bone, broke ribs, and broke facial bones. And then I hit my eye and had a concussion and lost a lot of blood. They ended up calling my parents, and my parents flew in, and they just told them, you need to brace yourself. We might be losing her in 24 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
And so my parents, prayer warriors, thank God, and just didn't want to believe that report. They had everybody praying, and miraculously, I went from ICU to a regular room within 24 hours.
Wow. And
yeah. And so
how many broken bones?
Yeah. So it broke all over. Yes. I mean, yes.
Literally from your head to your foot.
Yeah. Basically, the whole thing. And so.
Which again, that's another miracle to move from ICU to a regular room in 24 hours.
Yes.
Considering
it nuts when they're thinking that they're getting ready to lose me, possibly.
Yeah.
So, and then the doctors would come in and really just, it was a grim diagnosis. I say they spoke death over me. It was, she probably won't walk normal again. And if she does walk, it'll be with a cane. And
they said that to you or to your
yes,
parents?
Yes, they're saying it to me and to my parents, but I am on morphine every 15 minutes. So I'm kind of in and out of this. And and then she...
But still not something... For somebody who's recovering and in that type of state, not something that you want to be sharing.
Yes, no, that is not giving anybody hope at all, right? And she's probably not going to have kids, and then, and she's probably going to be blind in this left eye, and so there was nothing to it. But my mom and my dad stood there. My mom was like, had her Bible open, and she goes, well, this is not what my physician says. So she's going to be whole and healed. And, here's the thing that is the huge takeaway from that is that you are not your diagnosis. It doesn't matter what a doctor is telling you. That is not your identity. That's not your destiny. God has the final say.
I love that.
And so that is really what ended up happening after the takeaway from being completely healed is that these diagnoses, and once you learn, knowledge is power, right? And so it's so important that these doctors all mean good. They're wonderful. Thank God. I wouldn't be here.
Absolutely. You
Emergency
needed
medicine, 100%. But they're taught a diagnosis because they have to put a medication with it.
Right.
So, but we take it in as, oh my gosh, I have this, or now I am this, and our words are messages to our body, and our body is going to align with that, right? And so I did not realize at the time the power of what my parents were saying, even my mom speaking to the doctor and saying stuff, and
encouraging the doctor.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But the doctor was like, "Oh, honey, I think that you've had a long night. You need to go get some sleep." And so, but she goes, "Oh no, actually, I'm really good. I'm just telling you, she's gonna be healed and whole." And even though I was out of it, my subconscious is hearing
and
these
maybe
words.
even more important for your subconscious to latch onto that, right? And to hear that from your parents.
Yes, yes, and so, and again, you're just inviting God's presence in that room, and at that time. Again, I'm 21, I'm just learning about the things of God and kind of, figuring out my faith. And it was such a dark time, even though God was in it and doing all these things. I felt so alone because you are there now realizing there's no doctor that could heal me. My parents can't heal me. So I am all alone on this journey. It's me, myself, and I, right? And so I think at that moment was this, I can't grasp onto their faith. I have to own this myself. Right. I have to believe. And so I there was something in my mind that was like, you know what? I'm partnering. It's just me, it's me and you, God. We're doing this. And I am not going to listen to what they say. I rather die than not have the life that I had. So it was like this determination and this mindset that I had, and that, you know what, I'm going to be healed. And so that just played on. And I don't think I realized that till later, because again, my body is in fight or flight, it's just in survival, you're not thinking logically. But even to this day, I look back and realize, wow, I don't realize what I did that in my thoughts that created this reality and the life I'm living today. Because that is where I realized, wow, the body is amazing. I'm fascinated with it. Like, I couldn't learn enough about it. So even when I had kids, I was just, if they got sick, I wanted to figure out. I became my own health detective, and so I would go in sometimes when I had to for doctors, but certain things wouldn't resonate with me. And I'm just like, you know what? I need to figure this out myself. And I would read books and I would talk about it. And then I would always have friends going, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you like working in the medical field? Why aren't you doing something like being a holistic health doctor or something? My gosh, it's all you talk about. And so that is,
that's the backstory,
the story,
right?
Yeah, right, of how I got into it. But back to the plane crash. So, I was there for 2 weeks in the hospital, miracle after miracle. And I remember this one thing that I just felt was an angel that came to me. Before I actually was working with that ministry, I was a dancer, and not that I was going to be anything major, but I enjoyed dancing. And I had this old lady come to the door, and I'm going to tell you, I felt like she was 110 or something. And so she was bent over with a cane, and she goes, honey, I just want to tell you that God said you're going to dance again. I remember I lost it. Oh, yeah. Who are you? How do you know this? And but
so, again, just somebody speaking positivity,
yes,
speaking life, speaking love, and hope, even at that point.
Absolutely. God knows what you need, and so, and just carried me. And so, anyway, there were just little things that, if we are in tune with it and we're looking for it, that He shows up and He's faithful. And so I was there for 2 weeks in the hospital, and then I had to emergency fly back home and be in a hospital bed for 3 months in my house. And I just had to heal. I had to make sure my pelvis healed so that I could be able to start walking again. And believe it or not, you actually forget how to walk. And I did not know. I was like, what in the world?
Well, bed for 3 months.
Yeah, right.
It's a long time.
So, it was. And so the physical therapist was like, okay, so, I had my walker, and she goes, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to need you to tell your brain to tell your right leg to take a step, right? And I was like, okay. And so I'm sitting there and I'm concentrating, and I was like, and it took a while, but finally I took the step. And then I did it again, and I closed my eyes, and and slowly but surely I learned how to walk again. So now that
really laid a foundation.
Yes.
Wow.
So let's fast forward to holistic school, when I'm learning about our cells listen to what we're saying.
Right. Our thoughts.
Right. Yeah. Our thoughts are so powerful. And so, and then I would just remember it just clicked. Just the same way my parents, every night, every day, I'm going to say maybe every 5 minutes, kept praying over every part of my body.
Right.
And they just spoke life into my cells. Yep. And our cells listen, and these frequencies, and they, these cells are vibrating. Yep. Everything in our body is vibrating, and it is connecting on to what that energy that is coming from them speaking life.
Yeah, and we've talked about that on the show before. If you take the most powerful microscopes that we have right now, and you zoom into the cell, and you zoom into what makes the cell and the atoms, you realize there's more space than there is physical particle in our bodies. Yes. We are more space. And what happens in that space is energy. It's vibration, it's frequency. Absolutely. And that's what makes us up. And so when you're talking about the power of our thoughts, there's tons of scientific evidence that backs that up as well as the experiences that we have, the power of prayer and things like that.
Yes.
And, I have similar experiences in my family as well. my nephew, before he was born, was diagnosed. He had a hole in his heart. We have the ultrasounds to see it. Went and had prayer with our church. They went back the next week, another ultrasound or MRI or whatever they did. It was healed. They're like, we don't know how this happened, but here it is.
Amazing.
Last week, and this week it's gone. And so just the power of prayer. And, again, another story from my family, my grandfather was in a terrible car accident, broke his back in several places. They're like, you'll never be able to walk again. So, as soon as he can, he hops out of the bed and he's standing there and he takes his first step. They're like, okay, you'll never be able to lift more than 20 pounds again.
Yes.
So next thing he's doing is lifting 20 pounds. You'll never be able to lift more than 50 pounds. So the next thing he does is lift 50, because he has a mindset, right? He doesn't accept the diagnosis because he understood that wasn't the life he wanted to live.
Right.
And our body does have the ability to heal itself. And I think just sharing stories like this, letting people know, wherever you're at in life, wherever you find yourself, you are not your diagnosis. I love that. That's so powerful. That's so strong. And that there are other people who have made it through similar things, right? Whatever you're going through, and they're on the other side of it. And so that, like, you are a walking testimonial, and it's amazing. And that's so incredible. And it could be as big as life or death, like you experienced, right?
Absolutely.
But we also think about this in the sense of, okay, it would be hard to do a scientific study on people in your situation that you found yourself in with literally broken bones head to foot. So then how do we scale this back in from a scientific standpoint? How do we measure this on people? And so there was, there have been studies that have been done on older adults and looking at self-talk and their thoughts, right? And what they found is that whenever they trained these adults on positive thinking, just seeing the world from a positive perspective, would that have any outcome on their life? Would that change anything? And we see that their resilience increases, their quality of life increases. You have the same thing. There's studies that have been done on test takers, on medical students, when they're going through their boards, and the power of, are they being negative about themselves? Are they saying, I didn't study enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this, I'm not that? Or are they saying, I'm going to do amazing, I know this, I've gotten here, like all the positive things that can come with that. Then they measure and score and see the ones that have the positive outlook actually score higher on their exams. That's amazing, right? And the same thing from athletic performance as well. There have been studies that have been done on gymnasts, and we'll link some of this in the description as well so people can look at the studies. But gymnasts, same thing, hearing from their coaches, which was like your parents, right? Speaking life and love. So gymnasts whose coaches are constantly speaking positive into them, and then the gymnasts who are not just accepting that, but then also speaking positivity and thinking positively, they score higher. Their performances are better. And so it's amazing that we have these studies that validate just the power of our thoughts.
It is.
It's incredible.
It's fascinating. It is. And our cells are just like us. Even in the biology of belief, Bruce Lipton talked about even, putting cells in a petri dish, and he would put poison, and they would scurry, and they would go to to the edge to try to run away, right? And he says, but then when he put nutrients, they just started thriving, right? And so it's the same. It's the same thing, Are we going to speak life into ourselves and this belief and then be able to show up in this world? We're cheerleading each other on, just like we're cheerleading, ourselves on, because we're giving it what it needs. Our body needs to know that it can heal. Actually, our body knows it can heal. We just need to align with that belief that we can heal, that we aren't broken.
Right.
And
because that creates an energy. There's something that's about that positive thought, that positive sound. And so that it reminded me when you were talking about cells in a petri dish. There are, again, studies that are done on plants. And when you're speaking positive words to plants, typically it's between 250 hertz and 4,000 hertz. But when you're doing this, there's vibroacoustic studies on plants. And when you're speaking positively to plants, they're growing taller, they're getting more leaves, They're drought tolerant in a lot of cases as well. They're hardy because they want to live, right? Or that's what it kind of seems like, is by speaking life into a plant, something that, maybe we don't think about as being alive.
Right.
It actually has a life and an understanding. And it's just amazing to me that we can see this. And there's so many different applications of it.
Absolutely. And they're giving us life because their frequency to us. That's why being out in nature is so powerful. We're connecting with Earth because they're emitting that frequency that we need. It's this beautiful exchange.
Yeah.
And so,
that interconnectedness.
Yes. And I love it. And it's the same with grounding. We go out and we ground, and, we take off the plastic shoes, the rubber soles, and we go out and we ground on the earth, and, it's charging ourselves. And so again, it's so many beautiful things when you start learning about the human body, and it just goes on and on. There's so much to learn.
Well, so let's dive into that a little bit. If you had somebody who was chronically stressed, many of us are.
Yes.
If you have somebody who's dealing with high levels of stress on a regular basis, what would you talk to them about if they came into the clinic?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost is I would teach them about their nervous system. Right. And so we have 2 states that we can be in. So we could be in a sympathetic state, which is fight or flight, or freeze or fawn. And then we have the parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, heal, feel safe. The body cannot heal when it is being chased by a lion. So that's what you have to...
Or when it thinks that it's being chased by a lion.
Exactly. Because, that is huge, because the mind does not know what's real or perceived. So,
sorry, I have to interrupt, which that just reminds me of, it's so important with what we allow into our bodies, what we allow to see, to hear, to feel. I'm thinking about the TV shows that we watch, the movies that we watch, the things that we read about, the things that we just allow into our lives can put us in a state of fight or flight.
Absolutely.
And so there's been plenty of studies that have been done on that as well, right? If you're watching an action movie, a lot of times, or even with video games, right, is where we see a lot of studies in this space. If you're playing an action video game, your body doesn't necessarily know the difference of you playing a video game versus being in that situation in real life. You're going to have the same stress markers. You're going to have the same negative impacts happening to your body.
Right.
So that's
crazy. Yeah.
So taking that from a client perspective, then what are things that they can be doing?
Yeah. So, so that's, I have so many things that they could be doing. First thing is that, again, if you want the body to heal, we need to work with that nervous system. It needs to feel safe. So we got to tune into our bodies. So there's meditation, there's breath work, there's grounding, there's somatic healing, which is my absolute favorite. So there's things that we can do to get ourselves in that state. Again, I'm huge on mindset, because mindset is everything. So I want them to speak over their body, but figure out those stressors. We have believe that a lot of the stressors are out here, but we have some hidden stressors going on in the body.
Yeah, the inner work.
Yes, and but to the body, there's toxins and chemicals and pathogens and fungus and parasites, and there are some hidden stressors going on that we don't know. There's a fight going on in there, right?
Okay.
So our internal world is really showing up on the outside as well. So it's mirroring what's happening. So even though we got these stressors out here, or we don't think, because I have a lot of people who don't think they have stress out here, but they're scoring high on being in that state, right? And so I'm like, well, there's some hidden stressors going on that you are unaware of, that your body is secretly fighting. And so, so this is why it becomes a holistic approach, because again, even our thoughts are creating, like we talked about, the stress. So it's spirit, soul, and body. It's not going to be
all combined. It's not just one component.
It's not, and it's not going to be a quick fix. It's things are cumulative. You know, I'll have people are like, oh yeah, well, I've been working on my mindset. I've been working on my diet. I've been doing this. And I, you know, I'm still, you know, not feeling well. Well, the body keeps the score. By the way, that's a great book to read if you haven't read that book. But it's over time. The body remembers even from when you were in utero, right? So we do a deep dive and we look back into that, even how you even came into the world. If you came in the world under stress, your body was in fight or flight when you were born,
right?
You know, and so, yeah, so we talk about a lot of these things, and then we.
That sounds very different than going to my general practitioner that I grew up going to as a child.
Absolutely, it is, and
Yeah.
so yeah, and I want to get to know you as a person, and I want to empower and educate, and I want to cheer you on. I want you to know that your body can heal. That sky's the limit, you know, and we're just going to put it out there, and we're going to work with your body. We're going to partner with your body. Your body needs to know it's safe and it has permission to heal.
Yes.
And so, and in that alone, I just do simple things with people, and truly, it's like I already see hope in their eyes. And I've had people come back and go, just that talk with you, I'm just feeling better. Right? It's that belief. Whatever you believe is how you're going to live your life. So if you truly believe your body's not broken, it can heal, and that health is your birthright. My gosh, you know, that's a force to be reckoned with.
If you can get to that spot.
Yes, right? So, and I'm going to do everything for people to get to that spot because, you know, that's what happened with me. And I believe that's for everybody. I'm nobody special, you know? It's just again, partnering with God. So I always say, you know, you align with the Spirit, you partner with God's frequency, and then you just become this open vessel for healing and miracles to happen.
That's amazing. And I want to say, you are special. We're all special.
Absolutely.
We're all created unique, and we're
That's
all
true.
here
This
to
is
share
true.
something important.
Right.
So, I mean,
right.
what you've shared here today is amazing. So you mentioned somatic healing, or you said something about somatics. Tell me more about that. What is that?
Somatic healing is so powerful. It is really, so you're familiar with talk therapy.
Yes.
Well, talk therapy talks to our brain. Somatic practices talk to our body.
Oh, interesting.
And so what ends up happening is it's basically different things that we do with our hands and moving, and we're moving emotion. And we are energy, and energy needs to be flowing and moving all the time. And so just like our emotions need to be flowing and moving all the time. And I kind of, think of a river or, a pond or whatever. If it's stagnant and it's not moving, what's going to happen? The fish are going to die,
right,
fungus is going to grow, right? So we need to be constantly reassessing and moving emotion out, but understand the sacredness of emotions. They're just messages. And so if we look at it as this is our body communicating to us, right? So I'll even take it further. So when you're younger and you have traumas, and I'm not talking about the big traumas. We all have traumas. We all have traumas and dramas. I say we all have issues in our tissues. I mean, it's not, and so we go through life, and sometimes if the mind is not able to process what just happened, it's going to say, hey, I got this. And it's going to just, bury it either
Store
in
an emotion.
right. It's going to be either stored in your muscle, in your tissue, or in your nervous system.
Interesting.
And so these things are carrying frequencies that we are unaware of. It's in our subconscious though. And so this actually helps you tap in to those areas and move it out.
Very
right.
cool.
And so, but the somatic healing, when you get into that presence and you're honoring and you're in that moment, you're literally telling the body you're in a safe place. You can now move this out with no
breaking
judgment.
down dams and allowing the water,
for it
the
just to
emotion
flow and move. Yeah. And so that has been so huge in my life. Just the healing that has come from that, and the release, and realizing, we got this stuff playing in the mind that's not true, right? It's just the body is pulling from memory. And so the minute that we let this go, breakthrough just happens in your life. Just even healing of the body. A lot of disease in the body is just dis-ease. It is not disease. It's just your body is telling you, I'm off balance. It wants to be in homeostasis.
And so doing a practice like this where you get in the present moment, you kind of
Absolutely.
let the world disappear a little bit, and then you can
That's
find
right.
your balance again. You can release things that you didn't know you were holding on to.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to try that out.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. I'll have to show you. There's
Yeah.
like 3 that I absolutely love. And I'll even doing that in my sessions with my clients, and breakthroughs are happening, and it's exciting. It's
That's
exciting.
amazing, yeah.
It's all these free tools. We're always looking for the latest, greatest. Maybe it's a supplement, maybe it's, the biomat or infrared, and those are all great. But, a lot of people are on, have, financial difficulty. And I'm like, listen, we need to be tapping in to our bodies. This is a pharmacy, and so there are so many free things we can do that, again, we got this innate intelligence. God is in here. It says the kingdom of God is within, right? We just need to be activating it. And so, again, you can see I'm just...
The power of life and death is in the tongue, right?
Absolutely.
And so,
right.
the thoughts we think and the words we speak, and all of it.
It's all interconnected, and it's so powerful.
Absolutely.
And then once we are taught this and we understand it and we practice it, your life is changed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
How can people learn more about you? How can they connect with you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 TikTok accounts. One is Laina G3, and the other one is Align with Laina.
Okay.
And then also Soaak clinics. I also do telehealth.
Yeah.
And I believe the number is 918-551-6600.
Awesome.
And so they can make an appointment with me. I'd love to help you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Science of Sound with Erin Fournier. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. For more resources on frequency-based wellness, follow along at Soaak Podcast. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and stay in tune with the science of sound.